Hey, what's up, guys? I'm just back. I ain't done a video in a few days, being kind of busy in real life and stuff, but I just thought I'd make a tutorial just about starting sort of like characters and stuff in Zbrush. You know, where do I start from? How do I get something to use, something to model on? There's a couple of different ways. There's quite a few different ways you can start in ZBrush now, and the most common method is the Z-sphere. To get Z-sphere, just click on this little tool thing here. It'll be there by default, and just come down here to Z-sphere. Click on that and just drag it out with your left mouse button. Hold shift if you want to snap it, but honestly it doesn't really matter. Once you've got this sphere, before you do anything else, press the T button or press this edit button, but it's just easy to get used to the hotkeys, and the hotkey in this case is T. What it does is it makes it active, so I can now move around this. And well, what can you do with a Z-sphere? Well, if you turn on symmetry by pressing X, or you can go up here to transform, and your symmetry tools are on here. If you press X, you can see it's activating this. Just get used to reading these buttons and stuff on the screen so you can speed up your workflow. But okay, right, so in symmetry mode we've got a Z-sphere and we're in draw mode by default. There are different modes to ZBrush, and these follow the QWERTY keys. You can see them lined up on your keyboard there. It's just a sort of phrase on the internet for keys in software. But Q is draw, W is move, E is scale, and R is rotate. When you're in draw mode, which is Q, in the Z-spheres, if you draw, you'll notice now that you're getting these extra Z-spheres on top of the Z-sphere that you have. You can press shift to snap it to the size of the Z-sphere that you're drawing out. So whatever size the Z-sphere you're drawing on or pulling out these new spheres is going to conform to exactly the same as that. It's just a useful way to sort of keep a bit of continuity between, you know, sizes of these potential skeletal structures that you're going to draw. So I'm going to let go now of my mouse to draw that out, and you're left with like these two pieces. Now what you want to do is press W to go to move mode, and what move mode allows you to do is when you sort of highlight over these Z-spheres, you can pull them and manipulate them in the move sort of way. Okay, so what we can do with Z-spheres now is draw out some sort of skeletal structure of what we want to design. So always get used to switching between move and draw. To draw it in the middle, you can notice now if I bring my cursor to the middle of this, it's going to snap into that sort of green sort of thing. That's telling you that you're drawing out in the middle of the object. It's not sort of a symmetrical thing. It's only going to draw one Z-sphere once it snaps into the middle, so I can draw sort of the middle sort of spine of this thing. And I'm just going to pull this down. It also helps if you've got a smaller size brush, so you don't end up clicking on two different Z-spheres accidentally. Also get used to holding shift. If you hold shift, it's going to constrain it. Like I'm dragging out here and it's still constraining to that axis. You know, if I let go of shift, well, because I'm moving in, so I'm moving in the front there, doesn't really make much difference. And I've got my symmetry turned on as well. But if you hold in shift, it will constrain to an axis. There's something to bear in mind, shift snapping and stuff like that. Okay, so I'm just going to continue now drawing out and snapping these sort of Z-spheres into just some sort of skeletal kind of structure. You know, just a, doesn't have to be human or anything like that. You know, you just make what you want. A cool trick is that you don't always have to draw out them in like, you know, the fashion of the skeleton, like, oh, there's his shoulder, there's his elbow, and you sort of like draw a curve. You can just quite quickly just come in with your draw mode here, click down here like so, go into your move mode, and then just move these out just to get that sort of spinal kind of sort of feel. But yeah, you know, you still get used to using these Z-spheres quite easily. You know, it's pretty basic ZBrush stuff. maybe a bit weird to begin with, especially when you're trying to figure out, what's best to, get what you want to get out of this. But since Dynamesh and stuff came in, it doesn't really matter much. Yeah, I'm just going to leave it at that for now. I can't be bothered to draw out an entire skeleton. But what can we do now we've got this sort of structure, once we've designed our creature and everything? Well, one method, what we need to do is we need to get what we call an adaptive skin out of this. If you press A on your keyboard, you're going to get this sort of mesh preview. It's not actually a mesh you can use right now, it's just a preview. You can get that back by pressing A again. But if you come down here to adaptive skin, you can see it toggling on and off there by pressing A. You just want to hit make adaptive skin, and that's going to make this skin appear. You can see here zsphere and skin zsphere. So I'm going to click on that, and now we are actually in the skin mode of this, the actual editable mesh. If you press A, nothing's going to happen. Got to turn on symmetry again, as symmetry is subtool determined. You don't just turn symmetry on ZBrush, it's turning symmetry on for each subtool, so it's just something to be aware of. And now we can just go ahead and use move and whatnot just to sort of manipulate this further into what we want to get. This is pretty much the oldest method of ZBrush in terms of starting off, because back, I don't know, a few years ago this was the only method of working back in the day. So I think it has been, there's a lot cooler methods nowadays, a lot easier methods as well in terms of getting out this detail, but you can quickly start to build something, and now that we have the option these days to give it a bit of Dynamesh, so if we come down to this Dynamesh tab here and just hit Dynamesh, and I'm actually going to press no, just delete the lower, hang on, I'm lagging a little bit, delete the lower on that and just hit Dynamesh. It's pretty heavy. Let's bring it down a little bit. Hit Dynamesh on that. Get some clay build up. I'm going to switch this material as well whilst it's doing this. And you just go through the notions of sculpting, Dynameshing and whatnot until you're satisfied with the mesh, all there is to it. Yeah. I'm just going to show you some other methods now. That is the Z-sphere approach of starting off, designing skeletons and whatnot. If you hit the comma key to get lightbox open, there's all these different starting points in here. Here's a particularly nice thing to go with, is average male Nick. We can quickly come into here, select him, and go on this subtool palette. And all I'm going to do is, whilst I've got this guy selected, I'm just going to hit this cube. I'm going to hit append, and where that Nick model is, I'm going to hit that, and I'm just going to delete that cube just so I'm left with Nick here. So when you go on Nick here, it's just easier to get a clean thing going on. So yeah, clearly he's been made in an external program. You can tell by the topology, everything's all nice, and the loops and whatnot. But if you want to design a character just for quickness, you can just Dynamesh him. Mesh has layers, okay. Didn't know he had layers on there. Let's come to these layers and press bake all just to get rid of them. And you can just Dynamesh him and close his holes. I think he had a bit of holes in there. Close the holes, and just start sculpting on him. Do what you want to do, make him an alien or whatever. It's just a quick method. Don't be afraid of using what ZBrush supplies you. It may feel like a very cheap way, and it is a bit of a cheap way, and you're probably not going to learn anatomy as fast by using this method, just because it's giving you everything that's here. I mean, you still have to define the muscle groups, I guess, but it's a bit of a cheating method. But in terms of speed and designing stuff, very cool for fun projects. I'd use that for just messing around and stuff. But there's tons of stuff in here you can use. Especially, I like this. I think it's Ryan Kingsling thing. They're very useful if you're trying to figure out sort of skeletal structures. I'm just going to hit the solo button on this so we can see this skeleton. I've used this a few times when I'm sort of blocking in. I'd bring this in and just try to get my proportions right to the bones and whatnot. Yeah, useful, especially with the head, especially doing head studies. You can sort of really figure out how these eyes, how the eye sockets work and whatnot. I definitely have a go with this skeleton. Just play around. Just building meshes around this as a subtool or something. It's pretty cool. Another method that hasn't seen much light of day. If you come onto this, come into your lightbox thing, and hit this project in tool in a minute. Got this project thing here, and you're going to see something here called mannequins. If you click on this mannequin, you're going to get all these different things. There's quite a few of them, but most commonly used one is the 8-figure head male. I don't want to save note. I'm just going to draw. Okay, that didn't quite work. Yeah, it's probably just, I don't want to save. There we go. Okay, I'm just going to draw out this mannequin, so I didn't realise he was there. I'm just going to undo that. And what you're left is with this mannequin, which is a manipulatable guy. It works pretty much how a mannequin does in real life. It is made of like what are they called? Z-sphere like things that you can move them like so. It's just really useful for getting out quick shapes. Like so, like you can pose him up and that. If you just want to design something new, or you have an idea for this character, and you just want to get something quick out of here and into ZBrush, and to start sculpting ASAP, just quite literally just pull him around, and then I think if you press A, you're going to get an adaptive skin here. Density of 1, make adaptive skin. I'm going to go to the skin version of this, and you're best off just probably giving it a bit of relax here and there, and then dynameshing it a little bit just to give it that, so you get left with the sort of very sort of rough outline of this mannequin. But you can put it in some really sort of complicated poses and stuff like that, so it is pretty useful in that sort of respect. Okay, the next method I'm going to talk about, let me just change my background a little bit. I hate this gradient so much, so I'm just going to get rid of this gradient. Make that a bit darker actually. Yeah. Alright. The next method I'm going to talk about, I'm just going to use a sphere as an example here. I'm just going to switch back to matcap grey as well. As of R4 with multi-mesh insert brushes, I'm just going to dynamesh this quickly. I think this is polymesh. Dynamesh. Okay, so if you hit B, let's just say this is like a torso shape. If we hit B, we now have the option here, which is called Insert Multi-Mesh B Parts, which I'm assuming stands for body parts. So we click that. Now we've got this brush selected. You press M. You can see now that we have actually have a torso here. Let me just draw out this torso, like so. Maybe we'll keep it about that big. And we're going to notice now that it's actually still part of this sphere. Yeah, it's just. The thing about multi-mesh is that it draws things out, but it keeps it as the same subtool. So don't think as if you're drawing out separate subtools, But there is a trick. If it may just kind of rotate this a little bit whilst we've got it here. I'm just going to hide out this mesh, like so. I'm just going to delete this mesh. So now we're just left with this torso, right? And we can go for the notions now of adding these body parts in, like for instance its arm, turn on symmetry, and symmetry, turn on local. Okay, if you get this problem, right, where the symmetry isn't lining up, if you hit this local button here, you should rectify that problem. Just a quick fix. Actually, the thing about multi-mesh, for some reason, if you're in solo mode, when you try to drag it out, it kind of cancels out the mesh as well, which is really irritating. So just turn off solo mode whilst you're drawing these out. And I'm just going to draw out these arms, and it is drawing them out rather oddly. Maybe that's because local. Yes, okay, that's a problem. That is a problem. Easily solved. Okay. I'm just going to turn on the floor so I can see the middle of this, where it needs to be, which is this secondary line in here. Middle wants to be about kind of there, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to mask out one side of this area right here, and I'm going to click Smart Resim, and that's going to retopologize, well, not retopologize, but it's going to mirror and then resymmetry it. Just really nice for getting back this symmetry here. That should be spot on. So without any further ado, let's turn off this floor and we'll draw out these arms of his. And just using our sort of tool here, we can come in and rotate these arms around. They look huge. But yeah, I know it's just another fast method of, you know, getting stuff. Different method, I guess. You know, if you're sick of the same kind of stuff, you know, like using zspheres and whatnot. It's just another method of fun, I guess, you know. I never personally use this method yet, as I've only just figured out that it exists. So the torso is a bit weird looking though, I must admit. But yeah, you just dynamesh that, and then, you know, you start to draw out his legs. You know, I'm assuming his legs here. You can give him some dog legs if you want. Is there any male leg? Yep, full male leg. That was kind of okay. Right, there's some sort of freaky splits. But yeah, you just position these legs. I'm not really trying to. You see, this is what I mentioned about the skeleton that Ryan Kingsley did. You could bring that skeleton in as a sort of mesh for the background of this, just have it there so you can get your proportions right. Like, I'm really not paying much attention to what I'm doing here, you know. But you know, that's just some legs, you know, and then I can get in the head. I'm not even a multi-mesh anymore. I just got draw mode, and then just bring in this head. Make sure it snaps into the middle. So I'm just drawing one of these heads out, and that head looks big head. That looks about right. And you know, just rotate him around. Yeah, he looks really messed. But that's a really good like basis, you know. But the freaky thing about this is that you can continue to draw out, you know, all kinds of shit. Like, if you wanted to get some feet coming out of his chest, you know, you can go ahead and do that. You know, in terms of designing zombies, this method is beautiful. You know, you can do some ridiculously crazy stuff with this just because you have the option, you know, of drawing stuff out. Like, you could give him some ears on his shoulders. Like, who doesn't want ears on their shoulders and stuff, man? That is just, you know, that's some crazy shit, you know. I mean, it doesn't even have to be human, you know. That could be some, I don't know, alien stuff. So it's just good, you know. You can get some eyes where his nipples are and whatnot. You know, you can just like properly go to town on everything. That's not going to work, is it? Nope. You know, but it's just, I think Zbrush is, you know, when you first like open it up and stuff, you're just really sort of overwhelmed by everything. You know, I just thought I'd try and explain a few different methods of starting characters, you know, and they don't necessarily have to be human. You know, they got dog legs and whatnot. You know, it's not the most sort of in-depth arsenal of stuff, but you know, there's definitely enough stuff in there to get you going. More than enough, you know. You know, I mean, the possibilities are just crazy on this, you know. I'm trying to think if I've missed anything. I mean, there's always, you know, like, there's always the option of, you know, like, a method that I've sort of used in the past is, what I do is, I bring up my draw size a little bit. I mask out an area like so. Like if I want to pull out some limbs here, mask out an area I want, and then I'm going to control click on this outer side here, and I'm going to draw out the this transpose tool just to whereabouts I want it. I'm going to try to line it up like so. I'm going to hold control and shift to constrain it, and I'm going to pull out some limbs like so. And you're going to get some sort of quite stretchy kind of results to begin with, you know, but it's just a really accurate way of pulling out sort of limbs instead of using like snake hook and whatnot. And then you just come in with Dynamesh like so, and you know, you can just repeat the process over and over again. It's just a pretty neat way of doing it, you know. And whatever this line is pointing to, if you hold shift, it's going to constrain it, so you always get, you know, like a real clean kind of, I guess it's kind of like an extraction, but only more fun. It's just a couple of methods I thought I'd show you guys for starting ZBrush. Yeah, you know, make use of this stuff you have, you know, like all these mannequins and stuff, you know. I don't want to save that. You know, there's just so much you can use in ZBrush that like a lot of people don't even know about, you know. I mean, is this a horse? I'm not even sure. That's a dog. You know, in terms of, you know, seeing anatomy, you can use rotate if you don't want to, you know. I think it's a bit awkward, to be honest, using rotate. Yeah, it's a bit awkward. Best off using move for these mannequins. But in terms of, you know, starting anatomy and stuff like that, you know, it's pretty invaluable. You have a completely interactive dog to work with here, you know, in terms of designing creatures and stuff. It's pretty good. It's real good. You know, it's just, you can do whatever you want to this thing, you know. You can Dynamesh it, and you can start using multi-mesh just to draw different limbs. Anyway, yep, that's just about pretty much it. Hopefully you found this useful. In a bit.